Just stay strong. That's what everyone tells you when illness arrives. But here's what no one admits. Forcing strength only deepens the loneliness. Gritting your teeth doesn't make the fear disappear. It just buries it somewhere darker. The Buddha taught something radically different. Not strength, not denial, but a quiet, honest turning toward the body, toward what is actually here, right now. That turning changes everything. Today I want to share what that looks like. More than 2,500 years ago, in a small kingdom nestled at the foot of the Himalayas, a young prince lived inside a palace. The gardens were always in bloom. The servants always smiled. There was never a shortage of food, or fine clothing, or comfort. The high walls kept the outside world at a careful distance. And yet, the prince felt something missing. A quiet restlessness he couldn't name. One spring morning he did something he had rarely done before. He asked to go outside the palace gates. With a single attendant, he climbed into a carriage and passed through the gate. And from that moment on, his world began, slowly, quietly, irreversibly, to shift. The first thing he saw was an old man, bent nearly double under the weight of his own years, shuffling along the road with a wooden staff. The prince leaned forward, gripping the edge of the carriage. He had never seen a body worn down by time. Not like this, not up close, not where he could see the trembling hands and the clouded eyes. That night, back behind the high walls, the gardens looked the same, the servants still smiled, but something in him could not return to what it had been before. On the second journey, he saw a man lying in the road, racked with fever, his breath coming in shallow gasps, while travelers stepped around him as though he were a stone. On the third, he saw a body being carried to the cremation ground, followed by wailing relatives tearing at their clothes, and he understood for the first time that this too was waiting for him, waiting for everyone he had ever loved. The prince's name was Siddhartha. As the carriage rolled through the city streets, he pressed his face to the window. Mud-caked roads, market sellers calling out their wares, children laughing. He had never seen any of it. Then the carriage stopped. An old man sat hunched at the edge of the road. His back was bent like a bow. Deep lines carved his face. He couldn't stand without his walking stick. His eyes, clouded white, stared into empty space. "Who is that?" the prince asked his attendant. "That is an old man. Everyone who lives long enough becomes like that. Even you, my lord, someday." Siddhartha went quiet. He sat watching the old man for a long time, saying nothing. The carriage moved on, and before long they passed someone else, a figure lying at the side of the road, limbs swollen, moaning softly. "Who is that?" "That is a sick person. Illness can come for anyone, no matter how strong or healthy they appear." Something heavy settled in the prince's chest. A little further on, a small crowd had gathered around a stretcher. The person on it was completely still. The family nearby wept openly, their cries filling the street. "Who is that?" "That is a dead person. Everyone dies, my lord. You, me, every person who has ever been born." Siddhartha could no longer speak. He sat in silence all the way back, turning what he had seen over and over in his mind. Old age, sickness, death. These were not distant tragedies. They were seeds already planted inside him, inside everyone. But then, on the road home, he noticed one more figure. A man walking alone. He wore a thin, simple robe and carried only a single bowl. He had nothing, and yet there was something about his face. A stillness, a quiet light that didn't waver. "Who is that?" "That is a wandering monk. Someone who walks with the knowledge of aging, sickness, and death, and is not destroyed by it." Those words lodged in Siddhartha's heart like a splinter. That night, he could not sleep. The silk sheets, the soft pillows, the beautiful room, none of it meant anything. And before dawn broke, Siddhartha left. He left his wife, his newborn child, his wealth, his title, everything, carrying only one question. In a life where we age, fall ill, and die, how are we to live? That question drove him into 6 years of searching, and it is the same question that brings us here today. He sat with teachers who could enter deep states of stillness. He practiced austerity so severe that his ribs pressed through his skin like fingers through wet cloth. Other seekers watched him and whispered that surely this man of all men would find the answer. But the answer did not come. One evening, after years of searching, Siddhartha sat down beneath a tree. He was exhausted, not the exhaustion of a single hard day, but the exhaustion of a man who had tried everything and found nothing. A young village girl passed by, and seeing him there, offered him a simple bowl of rice. He accepted it, and for the first time in years, he ate. I want to bring this story gently to those of you who have been told you have cancer or who are living with a serious illness. When the diagnosis comes, what is it that hurts most? Some people say, the pain, the fear of dying, and yes, that suffering is absolutely real. But when you look a little deeper, the shape of the pain often reveals something more. It isn't only the illness itself that wounds us. There's still so much I haven't done. I can't leave my family. Why me? Why now? Under each of those cries there is a shared structure, a gap. This wasn't supposed to happen to me. I was supposed to stay healthy. I was supposed to have more time. This wasn't how it was meant to go. The suffering lives in the space between that supposed to and what is actually here. Buddhism looks at that gap and says something quiet but important. You are not suffering simply because you are ill. You are suffering because somewhere deep down, you believed you were not supposed to become ill. When Siddhartha lived inside the palace, he wasn't free from aging or sickness or death. He was simply kept from seeing them. The moment he stepped outside, they didn't appear from nowhere. They had been there all along. Illness can feel like an ambush, but from a Buddhist perspective, it was always part of what the body is, a living, changing thing that was never meant to stay the same. Let me ask you something gently. Which is the real you? The healthy you, or the you who is ill right now? We tend to feel that the healthy version is our true self, and the sick version is somehow wrong, or broken, or other. But is that really so? Your body has been changing every single day. Cells replacing themselves, blood moving, nothing staying exactly as it was yesterday. The healthy self you're trying to hold on to, it was always one temporary state of a body in motion. This is not a way of saying illness doesn't matter. It's not a way of dismissing your pain. It's simply this: the effort to protect a fixed, unchanging version of yourself. That effort can deepen the suffering. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because it's fighting against the nature of what a body actually is. After the Buddha reached awakening, he told his students again and again, birth is suffering, aging is suffering, sickness is suffering, death is suffering. He didn't deny it. He didn't tell anyone to escape it. He said suffering has a structure, and if you can see the structure clearly, something begins to change. The illness may not disappear, but the way you see it, that can shift. One man I heard of, when he received his diagnosis, spent the first weeks furious at his own body, as though it had betrayed a contract he never knew he'd signed. But slowly, sitting quietly each morning, he began to notice something. The same hands that were now failing him had also held his children, had kneaded bread, had caught someone who was falling. They had never been his to keep, only to use for a while. The rage didn't vanish overnight, but it began to loosen its grip, the way ice doesn't melt all at once, but simply, one morning, is no longer quite so solid. So what does this look like in the middle of an ordinary day? Imagine the night after a diagnosis. You're lying in bed. Your mind is spinning. Will the treatment work? What happens to the family? Am I a burden? What if the worst happens? And then you notice, it's been hours. Hours of living inside a future that hasn't arrived yet. When we're caught in that spiral, we're not in the present moment at all. The mind has gone somewhere else, into a future full of what-ifs that exist only as thoughts. Siddhartha didn't leave the palace to escape what he saw. He left to look at it directly, not to run from aging, sickness, and death, but to face them. That difference matters enormously. Anxiety doesn't actually live in the present, it lives in the imagination of what might come. Planning matters, yes. Talking with doctors, arranging care, having honest conversations with family, all of that is important. But there's a quiet line between thinking clearly and being trapped. There's something else that often comes with illness. The feeling of, why me? This is completely natural. Please don't push it away. But if you look underneath it, you often find an assumption hiding there. I was not supposed to be the one this happens to. And yet, there is no one alive for whom illness was off the table. The old man Siddhartha saw on the road was not being punished. He was not weak or careless or unlucky. He was simply a human being, living in a body, moving through time. That's all. One more thing. Many people who have faced serious illness have said something I find quietly remarkable. The days I used to drift through without noticing, now they feel vivid. The morning light, the taste of tea, the sound of someone I love in the next room. This isn't bravery, it isn't pretending. It's what happens when the illusion of this will always be here falls away, and what remains is simply what is here, right now. When attachment to a fixed self loosens, the present moment begins to shine differently. This is something Buddhism has been pointing toward for 2,500 years, and some people, in the hardest seasons of their lives, find their way to it without ever having read a single word of it. Siddhartha saw terrifying things outside the palace walls, but then he saw the monk, walking calmly, carrying almost nothing, his face at peace, knowing everything Siddhartha now knew, and still, walking. That image stayed with Siddhartha, not because the monk had solved anything, but because he was still moving, one foot then the other, through the same world that had just broken open. There is a woman I heard about once deep into her second year of treatment, who started leaving her phone in another room each morning and sitting by the window for 10 minutes with her coffee. She didn't call it meditation. She called it just being here before the day gets loud. She wasn't trying to be spiritual. She was just tired of missing the light coming through the glass. And in that small, unremarkable act, she had found what the monk on the road had found. Not an answer, but a place to stand. There's one small thing I'd like to invite you to try tonight. Nothing complicated. When you lie down and close your eyes, before sleep comes, bring your attention to one part of your body. Your chest, your hands, the soles of your feet. It doesn't matter which. Ask yourself, is there any sensation there right now? Warmth, weight, the pulse of blood, coolness, anything at all? Just feel it. However loudly the mind is running through fears about tomorrow or regrets about the past, the body is always here, always in the present moment. It is, in a way, an anchor you can always reach for, a way back to now. Many of the meditation practices the Buddha taught began exactly here, with breath, with the body's sensation. Not philosophy, not effort, just the breath coming in, the breath going out. This body, present, alive. If you can't sleep, try this. I can't promise the anxiety will vanish. I can't promise the thoughts will stop. But sometimes, something shifts. The noise in the mind quiets just a little. And in that quiet, there is a small opening. That opening is what Buddhism calls returning to now. If you have the energy for one more thing, tomorrow, when someone speaks to you, just listen. Not while forming your reply, not while preparing what you'll say next. Just receive their voice. Listening is one of the simplest ways back to the present. A voice only exists right now, not in the past, not in the future. Here. A child doesn't have to be taught this. Watch a young boy or girl listening to a story, their whole face open, their body still, completely caught inside the words. That quality of listening is still in you. It has simply been covered over. Perhaps tonight or tomorrow, you will find one small moment where it surfaces again. A woman once told me that after years of barely hearing her own mother's voice, always half listening, always somewhere else in her mind, she sat down one afternoon and simply let her mother speak. She said afterwards that it felt like meeting her for the first time. The words themselves were nothing remarkable, just talk of the garden, of the weather, but something passed between them that had been waiting a long time to pass. What are you feeling right now in this moment? Is it fear? Sadness? Something heavy that doesn't quite have a name? You don't have to answer. You don't have to resolve it. Could you just let it be there for a moment without trying to fix it or explain it or push it away? What would it feel like to simply sit with what is here? A monk once told me that he spent years trying to meditate his loneliness away until one morning he just pulled up a chair for it. The loneliness didn't leave, but something else arrived alongside it. Something quieter, almost like company. He never did find a word for what that was. Maybe that is enough. to stop evicting what knocks at the door, and instead slide over just a little, the way you might on a bench, to make room for a stranger who looks tired. The suffering that illness brings, what Buddhism calls byoku, was explored in a previous teaching, and it speaks directly to the heart of what we touched on today. You'll find the link in the description below. Siddhartha stepped outside and saw an old man, a sick man, a dead man, and he didn't run. He carried what he had seen, he walked with it. He let it ask its question of him for years. Facing illness doesn't mean becoming fearless. It doesn't mean the suffering stops. It might simply mean learning to see what is here with a little more honesty, a little more gentleness, not fighting the present moment into a shape it was never going to hold. The pain may not leave, the worry may stay, and still, the morning comes. Light arrives, someone speaks your name, breath moves through you. As long as something can be felt, today is continuing. When Siddhartha first left the palace, he was not yet the Buddha. He was just a young man who had seen something he could no longer unsee, something he hadn't wanted to look at. You may be in that place right now, looking at something you wished you didn't have to see. That's not weakness. That is one of the most honest things a person can do. Thank you, truly, for being here today. And for a moment, just let that be enough. That you came, that you stayed, that you let the words land where they needed to land. Siddhartha didn't leave the palace already holding the answers. He left holding only the questions, and somehow he trusted that was sufficient to begin. So do you. Maybe that is all any of us can do. Walk out through our own gate, carrying what we have seen, not yet knowing where the road leads, but placing one foot forward anyway. The palace is behind you now. The road is already beneath your feet. May today's words quietly take root within you. One story a day. In a week your words will change. In a month your eyes will change. In a year the same world will look completely different.